So now, as we already know that the slope of potential difference versus current graph, which is basically a straight line, gives us the resistance of a conductor. We'll see examples. First of all, let's say so we have the potential and potential difference versus current graph here. This is let's say using Ohm's law we have obtained, keeping the wire same for different potential differences, we obtain different values of a current, and after connecting all the coordinates values of voltage and current, we obtain this graph. Now the slope of this line or inclination of this line will tell us if the line is very much inclined from the x-axis, that means it has very high resistance. Okay, and if a line is close to x-axis, that means the resistance is very low and it is almost equal to 0. If the line is close to y-axis, that means it has very high resistance, right? So now let's take an example here, how we can simply by looking at the graph we can say which wire is having high resistance or low resistance. So let's say we have three wires. First wire here is A. For that we have obtained a graph using Ohm's law. For the second wire, as you can see here, B, this is again a straight line that indicates a straight line which is passing through the origin, which indicates that the second wire also obeys Ohm's law. And the wire number 3, so C, wire C, which also is a straight line and obeys Ohm's law. So simply by looking at the graph of this plot, what we can say? We can say that inclination of straight line which corresponds to C is less than the inclination of a straight line B, which is further lesser than the inclination of line C. That means the straight line A is having the highest inclination compared to C and B. Okay, so we can say that the slope of A is the greatest, the slope of line B is less than A, and the slope of line C is basically smallest. So A is having the highest inclination or highest slope in comparison to the three wires. Now what we saw previously is slope of graph or straight line which is plotted between potential difference. I mentioned voltage earlier, but it is better to write potential difference. So potential difference and current graph, the slope of that graph always tells us resistance. So simply by looking at the three wires, we can say that the slope of C is smaller. That means the resistance of this wire is smaller compared to A. A is having the highest inclination here, so that means A is also having the highest resistance. So simply by looking at the figure, we can say the wire A is having high resistance, the wire C is having least resistance, and the wire B is in between. The resistance of wire B is between A and C. I hope it is clear to all of you. Any doubt, you can contact me anytime. Then now we have this graph. Now we'll see how to calculate basically the resistance of a wire from the values of potential difference and values of current in accordance with the Newton's in accordance with the Ohm's law actually. So now if we want to calculate the resistance of the wire, first we are checking the wire is it straight or not. The wire is basically a straight line and which is also passing through the origin. That means V, potential difference, is directly proportional to I. You can see it from the figure also. As the potential difference increases, the higher value of a current we are getting. When the potential goes to 6, the value of a current also increases. So the potential difference, what does potential difference do? Potential difference basically makes, higher potential difference makes more and more electrons to flow through the wire. And what is current? Current is nothing but the number of charges, the total charge flowing through any given cross section area of the wire. So therefore, higher the potential difference, more number of electrons will flow through the wire, and therefore we should have a higher current. Now if we want to calculate what is the resistance of the wire from the plot, from the graph, then we have to first pick 2 points. We have selected here point number 1 and point number 2. So the coordinates will be x2, point number 2, and point number 3. Sorry. So the coordinates of second point will be x2 y2 and x3 y3 on y axis and x axis. But here we have potential difference on y axis and current on x axis. So therefore we'll put it as I2. Value of I2 is how much? 1, and value of V2 on y-axis is how much? 2. Similarly, if you go to point number 3, I3 and V3, the value of I3 is x coordinate. If you can compare here, that means when we draw a straight line downwards cutting the x-axis, the point where the straight line intersects or cuts the x-axis will give us the value. Here it is 2. Similarly, for voltage it is 4. Now when we substitute in the formula, resistance means nothing but slope of a straight line which is passing through the origin in potential difference versus current graph, right? And then here we saw slope can also be calculated by taking difference of values, any two values on y-axis, and the difference of corresponding values on x-axis. So here we know V3 is 4 and V2 is 2. So and current is 2, I3 is 2, and I1 is basically 1. Similarly, if you see V3 is actually 4 and V2 is actually 2. So V2 minus 2, the resistance of the wire is how much? 2 ohms. So this is how we use the graphs to calculate the values and to give an idea, first of all, very importantly. Then this is assignment question. Actually, I would request all of you to go through it or solve it in your notebook or textbook, notebook or register wherever you solve it. So look at the following graph and answer the following question. Such questions, they also appear in your exam. So this will be a practice actually. Does this graph obey Ohm's law? Now, simply by looking at the graph, can we say that the graph obeys Ohm's law or not? Actually, this graph is a straight line, but as you can see, if you take any point and you draw a straight line, you will see as the voltage is decreasing, the current is increasing, right? Which is not true with the Ohm's law. So this line basically does not obey Ohm's law. It do not follow the Ohm's law. Second question, what happens to the resistance of the conductor with increase in current? Now you can choose any 2 points and you should calculate. You will see the value would come in negative. Negative means decreasing. Whenever something comes with a negative sign, that means the value is basically decreasing. That you can check by calculating any two values, taking any 2 points. Now point number 3, calculate the resistance of the wire. So we know how to calculate the resistance of a wire, and then we can find out values from here. We can substitute in the expression for resistance is nothing but slope of a line. Even though it does not obey the Ohm's law, we can calculate the value of R because it is a graph between potential difference and current. But this does not go with the Ohm's law. Okay. Then from so far we have studied about what is resistance,